So, just like everyone else, I have that 16-year-old cousin who is obsessed with Harry Styles. And because of that, and also because I use the internet, it has come to my attention that this guy released a new album. And I've actually listened to some songs of his before. I haven't, however, done a deep dive into a whole album. And that's exactly what I spent the last 2 months with. And I've also tried to do some research. I attempted to watch this Apple Music interview, but it's 1 hour and 18 minutes and who am I kidding? I can't focus for that long. So instead of giving you a professional and well-researched album review, we are going to do some far-fetched interpretation of the lyrics, talk some shit about the songs, and I'll probably rank them. Not by skill, but by my own personal opinion, because that's obviously more important. When I first listened to the album, I was a bit shook because it didn't sound like Harry Styles. And I'm saying that as someone who's not an expert, but still it's just not very pop-like. And I always thought Harry Styles was a pop artist, but I guess he's doing a bit of rebranding right now, or maybe it's just what the pandemic did to him. I actually really don't know, because as I said, I did not watch the Apple Music interview. So anyway, what does the album sound like? I've often heard people say it's generally melancholic, and honestly that made me not want to listen to it first. But then I listened anyway, and I found a solution for my dislike of melancholic music at the moment. I just skipped the sad songs. And to be honest, at the beginning of the album, I did not have to do a lot of skipping. So the very first song is kind of the opposite of sad, and to be honest, I'm here for it. It's called Music for a Sushi Restaurant. And if I had a sushi restaurant, I would play it there. It seems very chaotic and kind of random, like my work ethic, but somehow it works. And besides the synth that's like a bit irritating, it sounds like funk, and to be honest, I love funk, so great song. Late Night Talking is very different. It sounds kind of like the basic bitch of this album, but at the same time it's not basic at all. It feels like the most pop-like compared to everything else, The lyrics are like very standard. There are lines like, I can't get you out of my head, I want to make you happier, I'd follow you anywhere. And every one of those lines could make a great song just by itself. I'm serious, I actually checked, these are all song titles as well. But for some reason, Harry Styles chose to cram those very relatable phrases all into one song to kind of create a super high density of stereotypical pop love lyrics. I can only speculate, but I think it might be to compensate for the fact that it's not a typical pop sound. And just like with every other song in this album, there's a lot of synth involved. It also has the most streams so far, with the exception of As It Was, but that was released earlier, so I'm just not gonna take that into account. To sum it up, this song is kind of a people pleaser, like me. When I read Grape Juice, I had to think of that Duck song that went viral on YouTube like a decade ago, because as far as I remember, that Duck wanted grape juice, or at least grapes. I'm not entirely sure, it's like been a decade. And those memories are more like a fever dream than actual memories, but I'm sure it existed somewhere I'm sure it's still online. But that's not even the point, because it turns out Harry Styles doesn't actually mean grape juice. He uses it as a fancy substitute for wine, which I can forgive him for, because the song itself is actually not that bad, although it doesn't have many streams. As It Was is probably the song you've already heard 1,000 of times, because it was released earlier and it seems to be everywhere. It's like the radio stations are vultures and this song is like the corpse of a dead animal that has been in the bright sun for 2 days. You can't escape it. It's everywhere. The first time I heard the song, Spotify suggested it to me, and I didn't look at the screen and I thought, oh, that's some nice indie. And don't call me stupid, it could have happened to you as well. When I realized that was Harry Styles, I was pretty shook. Not in a bad way though, because I feel like it's a good song, even though there's synth in it. I'm also not really sure how it fits into the album, but maybe that's also because I'm already fed up with it a bit. In this song, Harry Styles sings about being a bluebird, and at first I was kind of confused about it, why does he have to be blue? Is that some type of metaphor I don't understand? But then I realized that bluebird is just a special type of bird, and it's pretty obvious why he chose a bluebird. It's for the aesthetic. It's a very cute small bird. If I would have to choose to be a bird, I might choose a bluebird as well, The song itself is actually pretty good, although there's synth in it. And I thought that it would be a lot more popular because, as far as I remember, they even promoted it on James Corden. But I guess not everyone's into bluebirds and doing drugs in Harry Styles' kitchen. What do I know? So, to understand the next thing, you have to know that I spent the last 2 weeks listening to this new album, like on repeat. It was literally on a loop, you know? However, I always skipped this song. And for a good reason, because I just listened to it a second time and I still don't like it. Maybe it's just too much synth, I'm not sure. And you know, almost every other song in this album I can tolerate. I don't love them all the same, obviously, but if someone would put them on speaker while we were hanging out, I wouldn't complain. It would be fine. But if I would suddenly find myself listening to Cinema, it's not like I would end the friendship, but I would silently judge you. For me, this is like the black sheep of this album. Not sure if the saying works that way, but you get my point. This is like definitely one of my favorite songs out of the whole album. And it's not because of the lyrics or the synth. Also, by now you should have gotten the hint. If you don't like synth, stay away from this album. It's full of it. Like, filled to the brim, really. Just avoid it, okay? Anyway, do I maybe like Daydreaming because it's the only one that's sampled? I guess we'll never know. I said I don't like melancholic music, but I guess I lied, or maybe I'm just a hypocrite. Pick one. It's fine. Either way, this song is perfect. It's perfect for my playlist of sad songs. And really, I can't wait to cry to this at 2 a.m. And don't worry, in a good way. Crying to this would be a good cry. I'm aware that considering that I will probably call this an album review, it would be good to talk about all the songs. However, I decided to only talk about the songs that stood out to me, and by stood out to me, I mean not melancholic songs, with like 1 or 2 exceptions maybe. So to compensate for that, I decided to rank the songs so that there are no doubts left on how I feel about all of them. And to do that, I kind of split them into like categories. So the first category I would say is like the good songs, the songs I like the most. I would intentionally listen to them, and if I would meet someone else who was listening to one of those songs as well, I would probably like the person a bit more because of it. So the next group I would say is like, well, it's the neutrals, let's call it that. These songs are acceptable for me. I think they're okay options. If you would choose one of them, I would respect your choice and I wouldn't judge you. So yeah, then there's like the last few. These songs are just kind of a no thanks for me. They don't make me feel anything, which is probably the worst thing that music can do to you. So just please don't play them in my presence. And now I feel like it's time for a final ranking. Let's just, give the album some points. It's not a bad album, but it's also not like an amazing album. I would give it like a solid 7 out of 10. And I suggest you listen to it because you might find some songs you like. But don't do it if you don't like synth. And I'm serious, I'm not joking. If you can't stand synth, avoid this album at all costs, trust me.